Stand by. The vacuum tubes are warming up. This is a special live broadcast right here on Georgia Radio.
Now, despite some of your Facebook posts, I know most of you can read and write. Wade Peebles, I'm talking to you. Today, we've got somebody on here for you readers out there talking about the Angery American, Chris Weatherman. He's the author of a whole bunch of books. The 12th, though, in his installment called, are you ready for this? Exploring Home. It's a Survivalist series. Some of you, I have no doubt, have read it. But Chris Weatherman joins us now from way up in North Georgia, where he's hanging out with a buddy. We rode the storms out, didn't we, buddy? This was a rough morning. They canceled schools.
Which was kind of mind-boggling to me. They even were canceling schools in Florida, where I live, over the storm,
which is nuts.
Had me shaking my head.
I know. I'm thinking, how bad can this be? And then this morning, I thought, well, okay, I guess this kind of makes sense as the trees are blowing over out here, but whatever. Yeah. They wouldn't have done that in our day, would they? They would have said,
no, they wouldn't have done that in our day.
Maybe bring an umbrella, you know?
Yeah. I remember one time they shut down bus service, but school's still going. They're like, get here. However you can. But we're open, but we're not bringing you.
That's right. Well, that's just the way it goes. Morgan, your character, your lead character in all of your books would just kind of shake his head at this, wouldn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, it reminds me of Snowmageddon.
Yeah, there you go.
In Atlanta, which that one was legit.
Yeah.
And the people that were caught unprepared, and I think there's some PTSD for a lot of folks in Georgia.
Well, there is.
As a result of that event.
There is. I would agree with that. We sell out of bread and milk really quickly around here when there's bad.
Everybody's got to have French toast in a
That's right. And a Coca-Cola, as made famous by Saturday Night Live a long time ago.
That's right.
Let's talk about this book. It's a survivalist series. You're one of those crazy preppers right up until you're not, right? Right up until it all comes true, and then everybody goes, man, we should have listened to Chris. But you've written a series of novels about this, and this is really, it's compelling stuff, over 1 million sold, so clearly even if it's not on a major bestseller list, as we've talked about offline, and I don't want to get sued, so we won't talk about it now, but you can imagine, it's doing really well.
Yeah. I actually did hit the bestseller list on USA Today. They did list me.
There you go.
Didn't want it. But I made it on USA Today, and it's done extremely well. It was and the funny thing about it is I was originally writing it for my own personal entertainment. I wrote the first book on an online forum, an actual survival forum that had a fiction section, and sitting there reading some of the stories one night, I was like, these are, some of these are good, some of these are really bad. And I'm like, but they're all kind of missing something for me personally. And I literally I went, what the hell? I'm going to write one. And I started right then that night. I wrote the first night that I put, the first word on the page. I wrote 5,000 words that night. And posted it, went to bed, didn't think nothing about it. And got up the next morning and pulled my BlackBerry, remember the old crackberries out?
Oh, yeah.
And looking at the website as I'm getting ready to go to work, and saw the comments, and there were probably over 100 at that point already. And that started this incredible, that moment started this whole thing. And it ended up having over 2 million views online, with people begging me to publish it. And I was like, look, I'm no writer, guys. I'm not going to publish this. Nobody's going to pay money for this garbage. I said, here, let me write you another one. So I wrote the sequel on the same forum.
No kidding.
Until the pressure mounted. Actually, what it took was one of my buddies posted my PayPal account, and he's like, let's send him money. We'll make him do it. And people did. I ended up being sent about $4,000. I took that money and added to it and used what was, well, and still is referred to as a vanity press to produce the book. And, it hit the market, and it took off. I was way wrong. I was totally wrong. And so well, in fact, that about 6 weeks after I released it, Penguin Books called and made their first offer, which I declined, much to their surprise and chagrin. And then 2 weeks later, I think they found religion or something, and they called me back with an offer I couldn't say no to, and I took that one. And that's how we got from then to now. So.
And it's just off and running. That's the best part.
Yeah.
How do you describe
22 titles now? 22 titles.
And how do you describe it? Is it dystopian? Is it is it science fiction? I mean, is it just
I
good?
wouldn't qualify it as dystopian because it's not that dark. Post-apocalyptic is the term a lot of people use, because the scenario is like Bill Forstchen. I know Bill. He wrote 1 Second After, which is a very famous EMP based book, and mine is as well. But when I did mine, there were only a couple of books in this genre. And I only chose EMP to make the world as bad as I could, as fast as I could, to make it so hard on the characters and the people trying to live through it. And that was the fastest way to create that world. So that was the event that I picked and went with.
See, all these friends of mine thinking my tractor, my old 1950s Ford tractor that I keep going around here. Look, that might be my way to town.
Might be your way to town, and if you get you a PTO generator, it'll be your way to keep the lights on.
That's right. Well, until I run out of propane and everything else. But that's you were a power guy, because that's the first thing. And here's the other thing that I come back to when my friends are talking about this, because when you live on property, you're not a prepper. You're just trying to keep the lights on a lot of times out here.
Oh yeah,
but we talk about this kind of stuff, and it's not. Let me preface this by what I'm about to say. These houses that are over 100 years old, they never worried about this kind of stuff, like
no, they did
keeping
not.
the power on and the air conditioning, because they didn't have it. So
and they didn't need it. And the houses, the way we build houses now is so much different than the way they were built then. I lived in Pendleton, South Carolina for a while, for a house built in the 1800s by the cousin of Edgar Allan Poe, believe it or not. And Poe actually stayed in the house, and the house was incredible. We seldom had to run the air conditioning because the ventilation in the house was just so perfect. The windows were all 6 foot tall.
Yeah. Every
window in the house. And there was a central breezeway kind of corridor through the house from the front door to the back door. You could open them both. You had the breeze going through. And then you look at that and contrast it to how we build houses today. They simply cannot exist. They'll fill with mold without conditioned air. So.
Yeah, no, you're right on that. And I think when you talk about a character like Morgan, who's dealing with all of this on a daily basis. And then you see schools being canceled today for a little bit of bad weather and whatnot. This sort of sets up for something that I like to think of. It's not that, as far as writing goes, you don't have that massive bridge that you've got to step over into this reality for these characters. I mean, it's kind of we're looking at it here.
Absolutely. And this is a nothing, right? This is a nothing burger in the grand scheme of things, this little weather event, at least for down here. My kids live in Boston, and my middle daughter called me the night all upset that she couldn't get into her driveway because of the snow. And I'm like, well, how much snow is there? She's like, well, there's like 6 inches. I'm like, drive over that. And she's like, well, it's going to tear up my car. I'm like, no, it's not. Just drive through it. And she did. She instead drove to her sister's house and stayed the night there. I was like, oh.
What did COVID do for you as far as sales go? Because I would imagine that this really speaks to someone who is living in a moment like we all were with COVID.
It definitely helps sales when people start seeing the reality of the stuff that people like me talk about, and they see the reality of. Because I'm not a big, we're gonna overthrow the government. No, I'm about prepare for like this, that. Prepare for the things that are going to happen to you. The odds of there being an EMP strike in this country and taking us to our knees, while growing, sadly, is still slim. But you're going to have winter storms. You're going to have hurricanes. You're going to have tornadoes. You're going to have all these natural things that occur. You're going to have power outages. You're going to have these things, and just being ready to deal with those. Like I said, I'm sitting in my buddy's house up here in North Georgia. I'm looking at the fireplace, and sitting on top of the fireplace is probably 24 kerosene lanterns.
Yeah,
up there. Like. Power goes out, we don't care.
Well, he's friends with an author. He's got to keep reading your work, so it makes a lot of sense.
I'm never read any of my books.
Saw you bumping around in the dark, but I do have some. And the thing about those is, if you don't use them regularly and you don't know how to use them, you're liable to burn the house down. So,
absolutely. Well, but see, that goes back to lost skill, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, lost skills.
Well, it's a fun topic, and it's a great fun read according to all of the reviews, and by all of them, there's over 200 and something.
There's
right
way
now
more than that.
Well, no, just that I just looked at here in the recent sales category. So
that's on the new book. You mean?
Yeah,
yes.
on the new book. Yeah. So
I got a love-hate relationship with Amazon because Amazon has actually taken down over 16,000 reviews of my books.
Wow, there you go.
Because they started a new thing a few years ago that if a reviewer is connected to you via social media, so let's say they're your friend on Facebook, they do not consider that a valid review.
There you go. My mom's review of my bad book, as I self-describe it, my silly book, does not count. But that's okay. Nope. I'm glad she wrote it. Your qualifications go on. I mean, you were on the History Channel, which was really cool, the Alone series.
Well, and the guy I'm here visiting, he won that. Alan Kay, he's the winner of that season.
Well, see, there you go. And you practice what your characters are going through in being prepared for some type of incident that could come up. And you occasionally, I guess, go out and speak on this. How can folks sort of follow along with you and everything you got going on at the Angery American there?
Well, I'm on all your various social media platforms. You can find me there. And of course, I spell Angery, Angery, on purpose. It's not misspelled because I get messages from people all the time. How can you be an author if you can't spell angry? And my response, because there is a definition for that spelling of angry in the Urban Dictionary, which is where that comes from. But so you can find me on all the social medias, and we have a podcast that we do live on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And then goes out as a podcast on all the podcast platforms. I have a Patreon members there. We do live streams for them every week, and then once or twice a month we'll do a Facebook live stream as well, where we'll talk to folks, answer questions, and do all that kind of thing.
Well, if you want to go read something fun while you're sitting around watching it rain, you can go download it right now. It's called, again, Exploring Home. We're talking with multi-million seller Chris Weatherman at this point. I'm sure it is well over.
Yeah, we've moved a bunch. It's done well. It was surprising. Despite my best efforts, it's been hugely successful.
Despite your best efforts to derail the success.
Well, I didn't take it serious. That sounds crazy. And I know that there's people out there who aspire to be writers and things, and I never did. I'm an accidental author completely. That's what I tell people, very accidental. And for the first 10 years, I still never really approached it as I'm a writer. I've only actually recently even started to really claim that, say, well, yeah, actually, and it's weird to me when I'm introduced to people, if they don't know who I am and stuff, they'll be like, well, what do you do? And I try to have a little bit of fun with it. I'll be like, oh, well, a little this, a little bit of that. Well, how do you make money? I'm like, oh, I conjure that from thin air.
There you go.
Like, what? How do you conjure it from thin air? I'm like, I think it up. I just think it into existence.
How very Oprah, that's what was the book that came out a few years ago, The Shed or whatever that thing. Anyway, I'm showing my lack of knowledge here, but I think it's really cool. So in parting, give us some Morgan advice here. What can, a lot of people that come on here that garden, they say, well, just grow one plant on the porch. You'll feel better about your life. What can we do to be prepared?
Yeah, just a little bit of effort, a little bit of forethought. Situational awareness is one thing, and I don't mean that as in violent attacks. Like situational awareness is what's happening around you and what potentially could go wrong. So, having the ability to be able to see in the dark, if the power goes out in your house in the middle of the night, having ways of alternative heat, and that doesn't necessarily mean heaters and things like that. Wool blankets are old inventions, and they're fantastic. Get some, have them around. So shelf-stable food, some stored water, hygiene's important. Make sure you can cover those bases. Just be able to take care of yourself. We were too conditioned to call a guy, and all the stuff's it's super simple things. You've got to be able to eat. You got to be able to drink water. You got to be able to handle your waste, maintain your hygiene, maintain your core body temperature. So those are the basic things, and you earlier you talking about the survivalist, everybody listening, you, me, everybody who hears this, we're all survivalists because we're all still alive. So we're all surviving. So every one of us it's just the degree of effort that you'll put into it to ensure you can keep going. It's like your life insurance or your homeowner's insurance, or your car insurance. That's all this is. Just a little bit of insurance or assurance, however you want to look at it.
That's right. Well, I think it's great stuff, and you're talking to a lot of people right now who are agreeing with you on Georgia radio, because there's a lot of folks down south of us who live on large plots of land that do a lot of farming and whatnot, and this is nothing new to them. This is stuff that I'm thinking of several folks in mind right now who are going to be hearing this thinking that this is just everyday living. And it was 100 and something years ago.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. You know what I mean? When people lived closer to the earth, and by that I mean they ate food that was produced close to them. They raised the animals themselves or their neighbors, and the barter thing was in play. I might have cattle, you're growing potatoes. I mean, we'll do some swapping. And there's something to that. I don't think we're designed as humans aren't designed to necessarily be eating foods from different regions of the world intermittently. You see what I'm saying? You have to. So if this is my environment, this is the environment I'm designed to live in, and my body will become accustomed to this environment.
That explains so much, because I get sick if I eat salad from further away. Now, if I sit down and have a nice greasy chicken fried steak, because I am a Southerner at heart, born in Texas, moved here to the deep South. My body is more comfortable with that, Chris. It just is. It's more comfortable with that.
I'm a Southern boy too. I think I have gravy in my veins.
Yeah,
so
throw a little grease on it, and I'll be
That's
better.
it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Keep your processed tofu to yourself. I'll stick with my chicken fried steak. I'll die
I don't want to
sooner,
eat
too.
anything called curd.
There you go.
Cheese curds aren't necessarily a bad thing if you're
Squeaky, squeaky cheese.
Squeaky cheese, man.
Listen, give them the website one more time on how they can get a hold of you and folloy along, because there's some fun stuff.
AngeryAmerican.com. You can check that out, and it's got links to everything.
Spell it with an E, though.
Angery American.com.
There you go. Chris Weatherman, the Angery American. Thanks for hanging out today. A lot of fun.
Thanks for having me on that. This is great. Appreciate you. Love the background music too, man. Fantastic.
He's here every day with me, this guy, playing the fiddle right there. So thanks again, Chris. Glad y'all are here on Georgia Radio.
Georgia Radio. On your phone, in your home, everywhere you go.